When I think about the big house and I think about the Wiggins clan, I think about the location. The location of the big house is in the rural southeast corner of Dillon County. And the home is just one of two, which were built about a mile apart by two brothers in the early 1800s. And the floor and the foundation were held together with wooden pegs, and it is here that I begin to have my first memories of the Wiggins clan. I can remember seeing some of the seniors that were there, my dad and my granddad, and various ones would gather around the big house. And from there, people would go out and as the family grew, they would build smaller homes, but everything was connected in a certain hub there around this southeast corner of Dillon County. In the early 1900s, B.W. Wiggins Sr. and his wife Bertie Powers Wiggins moved into this home with their children, and those children were Willie Earl, Bertha, Sam, and Doug Wiggins. They began sharecropping on the Frank Ellaby farm. As I mentioned earlier, many of the smaller houses were located around the farm, which served as housing for the siblings as they got older and married and stayed on the farm as well. The big house was always the center of attention. I can remember playing many ball games out in the cow pasture behind the big house. A lot of activity took place around the big house there. My last visit when I went to the big house, probably 25 years ago, if you go upstairs and go to the right, there was plaster walls, and you could see the names of my dad and my Aunt Evelyn and some of the other siblings that were there. You could see that plastered on the walls and their names there engraved, and how many sticks of tobacco they'd taken off that day. It was quite an overwhelming feeling to stand there and to see the names of those that have now gone to be with their maker. All of the things that I'd heard about the big house back then brought me to the place where I wanted to know more. And the more we dug into the genealogy and the ancestry line, the more we began to find, and the more we began to find, then we kept on moving. I had always heard that I had an Uncle James, and we were able through this search to be able to find James and when he was born and when he died and what was the complications of his death. I'd always heard that it was Edna Earl, and we found her. We know where she's buried at and the year she died. And so it's been a journey of love. It's been a time of enjoying seeing history as we look at it from what we know and look back and find out what others have accumulated as far as documents go. I have a cousin, and he says that I'm his double first cousin. And the first time I heard him say this, I thought, how can that be? Well, when Willie Earl married Mary Edna Lane, Mary Edna Lane had a brother by the name of Willie as well. So Willie and Bertha became husband and wife, and Willie Earl and Mary Edna became husband and wife, and so we have double first cousins. My earliest recollection of the Wiggins clan was that they were sharecroppers on the Ellaby farm. The crops that would be grown would be tobacco and cotton. I can remember those long cotton fields and some of the tobacco days when we were actually under the barn and putting in tobacco and taking off tobacco. This is probably the only memory I have of my grandfather. I saw him laying on the floor at the altar of the Piney Grove Free Will Baptist Church. He died there after having a heart attack, and there's an image in my mind that I can begin to see him laying there. I can remember seeing a pair of khaki pants, and I could not have been more than 3 years old when that took place. My grandmama, Edna, some of the fondest memories I have of her was when she and I and Uncle Sam and Bob, we would go walking down Mill Creek, and we would be fishing, and she loved to fish for pike, and she'd have a sack on her back, and she'd catch those fish and shoot them into that sack and just keep on moving down the creek, and I can hear her laughing when she'd catch a big one now. And the other thing I remember distinctly about my grandmother is she made something called poor man's gravy. I'm telling you, that was some of the best eating I believe I ever did. It was brown gravy, and all she would do was take the hamburger meat that she would get and She browned it and put it in that brown gravy, and the seasoning she used was just outstanding, and I'll always remember that. And I'll always remember those times going around Grandmama's house on Sunday after church or whenever. We would all gather there, and we'd have little ball games in the yard and things of that nature. I can remember seeing the first airplane come down to spray the crops, and I couldn't have been more than 5 years old. And I remember specifically, I was heading down to the tobacco barn, and all of a sudden this plane drops out of the sky and it starts shooting something out of the back of it. I'll always remember Mom and Dad telling me that I came running to the house and my hair was standing up on my head, and I was scared to death. I thought that plane was coming to take me away. And another thing I remember about the farm, in this same house, we had a big old horse by the name of Red. This horse was standing on my foot. Dad, he hollered at the horse and it didn't move, and so he goes over, and I can remember seeing him just hit that horse, and I was so thankful that my dad had come to my rescue. And the biggest thing was just having family. We didn't have the electricity, we didn't have the running water, we didn't have inside plumbing. Those were things that are, I think probably shaped my life at least and made me appreciate what we have a whole lot more.